So good evening, everybody, and I'd like to give a warm welcome to Dr. Michael Finneran. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Okay, good. So Michael is the Senior Lecturer in Drama Education at Mary Immaculate College, in Drama, should I say, at Mary Immaculate College in University of Limerick. He's the founder head of the department, and he's the Programme Director for the BA in Contemporary and Applied Theatre. And Michael has a whole plethora of research interests in applied theatre and drama education, theatre practice, creativity, arts policy and social justice in the arts. And he has been involved in over 100 productions, wearing lots of different hats, which we'll talk about later on. I just want to say thank you very much for joining us this evening, Mike.
My great pleasure, Catherine. Lovely to be with you, and thanks for having me. And hello, everyone, and it's nice to meet you all. And yeah, it's as I'm sure we'll probably cover in a few minutes. I'm originally from Roscommon, so it's lovely to be at home.
Yay! Thank you. Yeah, no, I was hoping at some point in my tenure, I suppose, with Roscommon County Youth Theatre, that we'd find a way to link up. And I suppose 12 months ago, if I said that this would be it.
This will be it. Oh, well, there you go. You never know. Maybe we might manage a real life encounter at some stage. So we might, hopefully.
Yeah, it would be wonderful. So yeah, I suppose so. Roscommon County Youth Theatre is 20 years old, and it's based in the Arts Centre in Roscommon. I suppose before that was built, we began in School Hall in Roscommon Convent, and then we were in the courthouse in French Park around the time of Sam Dowling. Do you remember him?
I do indeed, yeah, absolutely.
Great man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we used to use that space as well. So it was really nice. So when the Arts Centre came about, then we got a permanent home in there, which is really, really lovely. So we've been on a really kind of long journey, and I suppose you have a really long journey, I suppose, that I suppose didn't really begin with theatre.
No, it didn't really, and no, and you're right. I'm very old, so it was a really, really, really long journey.
Well, if you're old, I'm old, because we're not big difference.
Well, it didn't begin with theatre at all, Catherine. Actually, and actually, funny enough, the minute you mentioned two of those places in terms of the courthouse in French Park, I grew up right beside French Park. I grew up in a little place called Ferrymount. And I spent all my younger days, I was mad into GAA, as I suppose so many people are, and I played with Western Gaels in French Park, and I used to walk past the courthouse and wonder what happened in there and what was going on in there, and you know, what was all of this arty stuff about. And of course, I grew up on a farm, so we used to sell cattle in the Mart in Roscommon, and I remember the Arts Centre being built, and again looking across there, wondering what's all that about, and so on and so forth. So it's funny how the world comes full circle. But no, I grew up in West Roscommon, and I went to school in a place called Cortonmore. My mum was the principal there, just outside Balladreen. I went to secondary school in St. Nathy's in Balladreen. And at the time, Nathy's was a single-sex school. It was a boys-only school, and I suppose there wouldn't have been much arts activity. But I was really lucky insofar as my mum particularly would have always had an interest in shows. And I remember going to see the Castlereagh Musical Society when I was younger, and I remember going to see I remember seeing a production of The Sound of Music, I think it was, in Balladreen in the old hall there, which is beside the old railway station. And then I had a fantastic teacher in St. Nathan's, a woman called Bandit Burke. Rini Burke was my Irish teacher, and she I admire her bravery really in many respects, but with an all boys class, she used to do a huge amount of debates and a huge amount of G-sport and conversations, and she put on some plays. So I would have been in a couple of plays as Gaeilge when I was in St. Nathan's. And I suppose when I look back, that they were the roots. I didn't know at the time that I was anyways interested in drama or theatre. I suppose it was just one of many other things that I was encountering in my life. But they were the very first roots, and I was the first in my family to go to secondary school. Sorry, to go to secondary school, but the first in my family, I suppose, to go on to college as well after that. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So Mum was a primary school teacher, and Dad was a secondary school teacher. He taught in Strokestown, and they're both alive and well, thankfully, but they're retired now. And I suppose they didn't really know what direction to send me in. I was interested in lots and lots of different things. So eventually I decided to go for medicine. because I suppose one of those things I knew what doctors did. And so I applied for medicine. I applied to, NUIG or UCG as it was at the time, and UCD and Trinity and things like that. And my mock results came back from my leaving cert, and they weren't as good as everyone thought they might be, or hoped they might be, myself included. I don't think I worked too hard. I wasn't massively motivated. And my mum came down to my bedroom one day and she said to me, look, she said, you're going to be back repeating the leaving cert unless you put something else down in your CAO, unless you kind of think beyond medicine. And I didn't love school that much, being honest, Catherine. So I said, right, well, we won't do the leaving cert again. And the decision was made. Sorry?
Like myself.
I don't think I could have managed it the second time around, to be honest. But, the mum said to me, I had been doing a bit of work. I had gone to Irish college and Coláiste na Bhíodhna a few times. And mum said to me, you're pretty good at Irish. And she knew I was good at kids. And she said, why don't you go and do primary school teaching? And I kind of didn't really love the idea of being a teacher because that's what my parents did. And I don't think I loved school that much. But I'm completely distracted now by that fine animals I have. But what's his name?
This is Caesar.
Hello, Caesar. How are you? Is he the king?
Oh, he is. Yeah. He rules.
That's good.
Sorry, it's totally distracting now.
No, that's all right. No, but I suppose I'm trying to explain how I have a very accidental career in the arts, because I ended up not getting the points. I missed medicine by 5 points, which was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me in the world in hindsight.
Goodness.
And I went to St. Pat's, which is now part of DCU in Drumcondra in Dublin, and I started a Bachelor of Education. And then that 2 things happened to me in that first year in college. First of all, I realized that learning and people and being around people could be really, really good, because I suppose I was with a lot more like-minded people, shall we say, maybe than in school. But the second thing that happened to me, and this is really my birth moment as in the arts, was I was on my way to the library one night. I think I lived in halls of residence in first year, so I think it was more for a stroll and for a chat and to catch up with people than anything else. And I was walking past the theatre in St. Pat's, which is in the main building. And a girl, Sinead, who I knew from the halls of residence, put her head, just happened to come out the door at the same time. And she said to me, would you ever come up and give us a hand? We're stuck for a few bodies. And I said, what are you doing? We're putting on a play. And they were short of stage crew, as of course everyone always is, putting on a play, particularly in college. Yeah, absolutely. And they were doing a production of the Colleen Bawn, which is a Dion Boucicault play. It's very famous. I teach it now. It's a very famous play because it's, I suppose, the invention of stage Irishness and Paddy Whackery and a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
And they were doing the Colleen Bawn, and I ended up being on the crew for the whole show, and I ended up being on the crew for every other single show that happened for my 3 years in college. And that's where I suppose that's where all the jots became joined. And so I graduated as a teacher, but knowing, I suppose, already that I probably wouldn't always be a teacher, that I had a real passion for drama and for theatre,
Okay, and that's there's a huge amount in that, because we've had a lot of our Roscommon County Theatre members come from throughout the county, so we've had a lot of past members from Nathys with us, and some of them have gone on to be involved in National Theatre, and some of them involved in different iterations of Arts Train and the young. The National Youth Theatre Forum and National Youth Theatre and Festival, and as facilitators, and we're gone now running other youth theatres, and we're involved in production, and Drew Jeremy Woods now runs Sligo County Youth Theatre. S.J. Woods did a master's in Galway in drama, and she'd been in Dublin before, and she's got a couple of bursaries recently with Arts Council and things like that. So there's been a lot of past members. I think in the last 10 years, at least annually, every year, 20% of our membership doing the Leaving Cert go on to study theatre, drama, performance.
Wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic.
And are all working in the industry. So it's great. But I've gone back and for years upon years, always going to Nathys and deliver a couple of workshops there every year. So there's a real.
Well, maybe that's the thing. I've never set foot in Nathys since the day I finished my Leaving Cert. Would you believe? I've never been back in the school once.
Wow.
So 1993 was the last time I was there, which is everyone else on the call is kind of going, 1993, when was that? A long time ago.
Apart from me, of course. And then my sister now actually teaches in Strokestown. So yeah, and we've had a lot of past members.
Oh, right, okay.
Your dad was in Strokestown, so a lot of past members would have come from Strokestown as well. So it's nice to kind of have those.
From Strokestown, yeah. And they, you know, it's funny because I used to Dad would have come home from school, and I remember feeling jealous when I was a kid, because they used to do shows all the time. So they would do musicals and they would do plays, and the staff every year in Strokestown, back in the 80s and 90s, would always do a staff cabaret. I remember they used to do, because of course Percy French, famously born in Strokestown, they used to do it was called French Frolics, I think, in the school. So I remember going to Strokestown to see my dad on stage as part of a staff performance in school. So there's a long tradition of performance in that school, definitely. You know?
Yeah, Lorraine Sheridan, or Lorraine Corkin, she was the PE teacher, but she would have been one of the people who would have always kind of been one of the main people responsible for the productions in the school. And then coincidentally enough, her son Owen has recently just done a couple of workshops with us involving musical theatre, and he's like a real wizard and a real gem in terms of performance as well. But he studied engineering in college in Galway. But again, I think like yourself, I don't think he'll ever work a day in that role. I think it's all going to be musical theatre for him and performance.
There you go.
So yeah, and then a really, really man I admire and have fortunately done a couple of workshops with him at different points, Jonathan Nealance, who ended up over in Warwick. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this actually crossed over with my time in St. Pat's a little bit, because I was so in the final year of your drama program, as you know, because you teach these students on our program in Limerick, you can choose to specialize a little bit, because obviously within a B.Ed you're a general primary school teacher, but you can choose certain areas of interest. So I was a drama specialist, and the head of drama at the time is a man called Peter O'Driscoll, and Peter had Nealance over to Drumcondra to do a weekend workshop. So I would have spent all day Saturday and all day Sunday in a workshop with Nealance, and it blew my mind, because it was the first time I connected what I was studying academically in terms of facilitation and training and teacher education with my passion for drama, because he used these incredible conventions and techniques that we would all know now very well, like teacher and role and so on and so forth. And I absolutely loved it. I adored it. And I went and I started working. I taught in Inchicore for a couple of years, but I was spending more time, to be honest. I earned my first paycheck in the theatre. I was a stage manager for Tops of the Town. I got paid an obscene amount of money back in the day, I think £5,000 to stage manage a Tops show. But I was working on the casual crew for the Gaiety and for the Gate at the time as well. So I was kind of teaching by day and being a general purpose theatre person by night. Literally moonlighting and not getting very much sleep. But then I made a decision to go back and do my master's. And you know, it's funny, in your questions that we talked about earlier on, you said, you know, what's the best bit of advice you ever got? And someone said to me once that, you know, one thing you have to do in your life is invest in yourself. And I decided that I wanted to invest in my passion and join it into my career in some way, shape, form. So I went off to Warwick to do my MA in drama and theatre education, which kind of bridged my two things together. And I was really lucky. I knew I went there because Nealance was there, and I was inspired by him. But little did I know that I would also be taught by a man called Ken Robinson, who lots of the guys listening won't know this, but Ken supervised my MA dissertation. And then Joe Winston, who again, Catherine, you'll probably know from the literature. So Joe and Ken and Jonathan Nealance were my tutors there. But I spent the year there, and I did workshops with everything from Edward Bond, the amazing English playwright who writes a lot of work from young people. Spent 2 days. I spent a week on placement with DVH, we're the incredible physical theatre company in London. I spent 3 days working with Eugenio Barba, who's founded Odin Teatret in Denmark, and kind of third person theatre, all that kind of stuff. So I had an incredible set of tutors, but I also had an incredible set of experiences. And I worked with the Warwick Arts Centre. I was a stage electrician, and it was at that stage, I became aware of the fact that, again, something that happens. There's a little bit of a split sometimes in the theatre world, where people sometimes feel that the kind of work that you and I might do, Catherine, isn't always kind of real theatre work. Because we're facilitators, we're teachers. We spend more of our time in classrooms and in workshops than we might do in theatre venues a lot of the time. And 20 years ago, there was a big split between that. So I remember one day in a workshop with Neelan's, and I was doing a split shift in the Warwick Arts Centre. So I had done a 5 a.m. fit up, which where we unload the trucks and we put up all the lights and the sound. A 5 a.m. fit up for Jules Holland. Actually, I got to meet the man himself and had my breakfast there. Yeah, it was fantastic. And so we rolled in all his stuff, and then the backline techs take over and they tune the guitars. And we were sent home at about 10 o'clock in the morning and told, right, you'll come back after the gig tonight, probably about 10 o'clock tonight, take it all down, load up the trucks, and they go on to the next venue. So, but you're left on call for the day. So you have a radio, a walkie-talkie. So I went off to my lecture at about 12 o'clock, and I was there in my drama workshop and doing a still image or doing a piece of teacher and role or whatever I was doing. And the next thing, my walkie-talkie erupted in the bag going beep, 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 442, Finneran, come in, over, please. And I had to, we didn't really have mobiles back in the day. So I had to take the walkie-talkie and go outside and answer it. And I was called back to work. And I tried to explain this, and Neelan's was furious, kind of going, what are you doing, farting around, messing around in the theatre? You should be in here learning about drama. And I'm kind of going, well, hold on, I'm learning about drama over there as well. It's just my life became very confused. But I've always, it's amazing the stuff you learn. At that moment, I remember thinking, I'm never letting this happen to myself, where the stuff I do in classrooms or in school halls or in community centres is going to be any different or any less important to the stuff I do in theatres. And that's something I've always held really important to me since then,
Yeah, and I can kind of speak to that as well, because I remember when I was in Dublin and I had been with Dublin Youth Theatre, and then I'd been involved with the National Association of Youth Theatre, and I was on the founding course of arts train back in the late 90s as well, 1999 I think it was, and I remember having to kind of earn my keep and pay my rent in Dublin, and I was working as well in a bar at night time, and sure I was hanging out with like all the musicians and crack and theatre and all that, and that was all I wanted. But I remember having a strict kind of conversation with a very, very good friend of mine and colleague as well, and kind of going, you have to kind of make a decision here. What do you want to do? It's you can't do both. You can't burn the candles at both. It's to be one or the other. I was kind of go, well, Jesus, I need to do this so I can still do this that I want to do. And then I was like, no, you can't actually do both. And I remember then just really making that really tough decision like 20 plus years ago, and kind of going, all right, I'm just going to go for it, because if you don't, you'll never know. But at the same time, if you don't give it a chance and give it a try and give it everything, then half-heartedly doing something, you don't know. And I remember it being such a big risk at the time, because I was literally leaving any financial stability I had behind, and it paid off in dividends, and I literally have never stopped working since. It's just like literally and one kind of thing after another, and that's, I think that's the way the kind of work we do really does happen. It's just like one thing falls into the next, and one thing starts.
And you pick up skills, don't you? That go into, like I trained that time at the Warwick Arts Centre and then with the Royal Shakespeare Company as a stage electrician, and those skills have never left me all my life. And I still work as a lampy, I still work as a lighting designer and stuff like that. But yeah, as you say, you pick up these things, and I think theatre people, it's something I try to say to my students in drama all the time, is that regardless of whether you work in the business or not, but theatre people are the most self-reliant people I know, and I see that I see that all around. I've seen it during the pandemic. Many of my friends who are in the business have been unemployed or been out of work, and they find other ways of surviving. They find other ways of improvising, from setting up podcasts to doing street entertainment, to all sorts of things. And I just think theatre people are resilient and resourceful, and they're great.
Yeah, absolutely. No, totally. So I suppose a nice kind of lead on from that is like kind of, because it is such an uncertain career path, and I know it's more acceptable and recognised now than it was like 20 odd years ago, when we were kind of in the game and sort of that starting out and sort of that. But what kind of qualities do you think makes a good actor?
Makes a good actor,
or brings out the best in an actor?
Yeah, Can we come back to whether actors are important in a little while?
We can go straight to it now. This is our night. Yeah, we can go wherever you want to go.
No. No, I'm always joking. Well, it's funny thing. I see acting as a fantastic gateway drug into theatre. I think lots of, I'm sure the guys who are listening to us are came to us going youth theatre first of all because they're really interested in performing. Most of my students find their way to me because they're interested in performing, and then they discover all the other really cool and fascinating and wonderful jobs that exist in the theatre world. Going back to your question, I'm married to an actor. Jean, my wife, was on the West End for many years, and she trained in Mountview in the UK. So she's musical theatre, and she worked. God, I'm sailing on her coattails now, but she worked with Trevor Nunn, and she was in the world premiere of Les Mis, of Witches of Eastwick, and a couple of big national theatre productions.
Wow.
She always says to me, and I obviously trust her for obvious reasons, but she always says to me the thing she values most in other actors is generosity. And it's one of those things, and you know this, Catherine, when you're playing across from, I'm not an actor. I've never really performed except in those probably not very good productions back in St. Nathan's. No offense to Mrs. Burke if she's listening in. I wouldn't dare. It's just not in me. Maybe I could try, but it's not in me, and I have too many other interests. But it's when I'm working with actors, it's the thing I value most is their generosity to listen to me as a director or as a facilitator, but then their generosity to play with the other members of the ensemble, to be of no greater or no lesser importance than the other 7, 8, 10, 15, 35 people on that stage. So that for me is the single greatest thing. It's a humility and a generosity, I think. And of course, in saying that, we're neglecting all the technical elements of the craft, like like gesture and facial expression and delivery and so on and so forth. But I think those very human qualities of generosity and humility are massively important to me.
Yeah, they're foundations, really, aren't they?
Definitely so. And you just won't go very far, I find. And I'm sure, look, you've had, obviously, I know you've had Aaron on recently, and probably the finest male actor in Ireland at this moment in time. And by all accounts, I've only met him a few times, but by all accounts, an incredibly generous and humble guy to work with. So the women and the men who are at the top of their game as actors have those qualities, and in spades. The ones who think that they're the best in the world rarely get to be the best in the world,
Yeah, no, it's the ones that are most humble and most sincere. And even if you look back, if you think of any really great improvisation exercise, or if you think about it, improvisation as chords, it's all about give and take,
all about that, isn't it? It's all about those simple mirroring exercises that we do all the time, watching people and being attentive to inhalation, exhalation, being attentive to our own bodies and to their bodies, and not stealing space on stage, not occupying space on stage. Yeah. Absolutely foundational things, and everything else you pick up. The technical craft and the craft elements of it you pick up then after that.
Yeah, but it's so true to go back to that point, like when everyone starts, everyone wants to be an actor. I know when I started, all I ever wanted to be was an actor. I never dreamed of being a facilitator, being a writer, being a playwright, being a lecturer, being a producer, any of the other 20 hats, set design, costume design, light design. You end up doing it all, and it's a needs must a lot of the time. But it can take you to so many places, and it can be such a voyage of discovery.
It can. Yeah.
And I think that is a really exciting place to be in,
it really is, and it's like we can't do obviously what we do in terms of making theatre or facilitating theatre in some way, shape, or form without actors. Like we need performers. It's based on performance, and at the same time there's just so many other jobs in the theatre, and it actually worries me a little because we're about to graduate our third class from our BA in Mary I. And not one of them want to be an actor. None of the three classes. They go into stage management, they go into facilitation, they go into youth work. Some of them are going into production and design and all sorts of things like that as well. But I think they just discovered the whole other world that lies beyond that. And some of them are incredible.
Yeah, and it is. It's such a big world, and they're really highly sought after positions as well. Like there's some amazing people.
And it's so. Yeah, and it's amazing people, and it's so competitive. It's so incredibly competitive to be an actor. I have a friend who is a professional actor, who I've had this conversation with him, who would maintain, I won't name him because he mightn't like to be named, but who would maintain that actually the most fun you'll have from acting is actually to do it as a passionate hobby, to do it as, you know, with community theatre, with amateur theatre, whatever it might be. That acting as a professional job in Ireland is probably a little bit too hard. I shouldn't be saying this to the guys because I don't want to put people off. If it's your passion, you follow it, and that's the main thing, regardless of where the, you know, I'm sure you've heard this from other people, regardless of where the journey will take you. But my friend reckons that actually there's more joy to be had in doing it as a passionate hobby as opposed to a job, because it's such a hard job and it's so difficult, you know, to make ends meet and to go from gig to gig and try and get cast in good work as well, you know.
Yeah, but I suppose like there is, but even within that, like there's very few permanent positions. And here now I'm talking negatively about it, but there's a lovely freedom in that freelance work. Like I've always been self-employed. I've always been a freelancer, and I have never been out of work. I
Yeah.
I will say I'm always too busy. Anyone who knows me or anyone that knows me indirectly will always say, "Oh no, she's too busy. You won't get her," or "You'd want to book her a year in advance," or "She's the hardest working woman in theatre in Ireland." But you're just constantly busy, but that doesn't come without kind of hard graft and dedication and commitment. Um,
Absolutely, and a range, and you embody this in spades. You know, a range of abilities across a number of different facets of what we do, because you know you can produce, you can direct, and you can facilitate, and many other things on top of that. And people who have those multiple skills in Ireland, particularly, will always work. And you know, obviously, people who do it well, and people who are going back to the generosity and the humility thing as well. You know, so yeah, that would be a big bit of advice I have to anyone who's starting out in the profession, is develop multiple skills. You know, never, you know, a bird never flew on one wing. Simple as that, you know.
yeah, definitely, and that kind of takes us nicely um, to that where we're talking about kind of what kind of careers are open to drama and theatre graduates. We talk about that in a little while, but maybe to jump back to yourself, like because you wear a lot of those hats, and from directing to producing to design, and to not alone to speak of all your work in academia and academic writing and publishing and all that. So maybe you might talk to us a little bit about that, but maybe just before you do, had you ever any kind of compassion to act at all?
I think I had half a notion to, and when I was a teacher, and when I did a huge amount of workshop work, which I don't do so much anymore now because my life has taken me in different directions, I would find myself in moments of kind of being in role and really kind of fancying myself in the part and all the rest of it. But it's not of me, you know. I find it very hard to explain what it is. It's just, it doesn't fit well on me. Some people will step into role and step into a character with an ease, and I was never able to do that. It was just always a struggle. So I think I may have fancied it at an earlier stage in my life, but I quickly realized that it just wasn't the thing for me. And I directed a production of Conor McPherson's The Seafarer. It must be the guts of 10 years ago. And I read in one night. For some reason, our stage manager was out, and one of the guys. It's 5 men. It's set with 5 men in a flat in Dublin, and so it was an all male kind of company except for our female stage manager. And one of the cast was missing. Our stage manager was missing. So the only other person who was there to read in was me. So I read into the part. And one of the lads came up to me afterwards and he said, "Jason, Mike," he said, "You're a decent director," but he said, "You're a bleeding awful actor." So that was the end of that. There was no way back after that.
Yeah, it's a long, like, because I did begin acting, and and then there was a gap in it. Then when all the facilitation and writing and directing kind of kicked off, then I really kind of wanted to get back to it because I'd done a good bit of in Dublin, a bit would have been involved in productions in the old project at the Mint and cool places like that back in the day. But so before my son was born, I had gone back on the road, and 3 of us actually, with 2 past members of the youth theatre, and you probably know Angela Betson, the Australian playwright.
Yeah, I not personally, but I know the name. Yeah, absolutely.
Black Skirt. So it was like 3-hander, 26 roles,
Wow.
3, yeah, crazy. And we had brought it to Barbaro, and we'd done a bit of a tour, and we brought it here and there, and it was great. It was so nerve-wracking, so different, but I did have a kind of a bit of a notion of getting back to it, but then kind of life and family and whatnot took over, and but there's something that's I think even a double bonus with directing.
Hmm.
Um,
There is absolutely, and well, the first thing to say is there's plenty of time left, Catherine. You know, you might end up back on the stage yet, so don't be discounting it. There is a bonus with directing. Um, you know, I suppose you get to really directly mold that action on stage, and of course, I don't know how would you find yourself as a director, and probably the guys on the call probably would be able to answer that. I'm sure some of them have been through your hands in productions. Are you quite a prescriptive director, or are you quite a kind of an open-ended director, shall we say?
I'm open-ended to a good degree. I would like to think, anyways. Yeah, no, I like to experiment. I like to play. I like to look at the what ifs. I like to layer. I like to really go
Mm.
back and layer. But I'm hugely influenced by physical theatre. So DV8,
Yeah.
Pop Up and Frantic Assembly. I've done a huge amount of work with them, in
Mm.
different parts of the world. But the ultimate, I think, one of them all would be Viewpoints and
Yeah.
Bogarts. And
Yeah.
having trained with Bogart in the States, it
Mm.
just really just threw a whole other dimension
Yeah.
to my work
Yeah.
as a director. And so working as an ensemble, working physically, to me is just, you know,
That's
the,
the way
at the
to do it.
core of all my work, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm really open to kind of playing and discovering. So no, I wouldn't go in and have everything plotted out, but I would maybe to have a rough storyboard or maybe have a notion. What about if we tried
Mm.
this? But I really believe in letting actors find it,
Mm.
but not going in unplanned, but
Yeah.
not as prescriptive. What about you?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I got thrown into the deep end directorially because I started directing shows with students. Really, I know all of those now in terms of um, viewpoints and Bogart's work and all the different kind of theoretical approaches to it. But really, when I started directing, it was very much, well, I'm here, I'm in charge, I want plays to go on, so I better start putting them together, kind of thing. So I had to kind of stumble my way through. Where I sit now is not in a dissimilar place to you. I would probably get to it in a different route, but yeah, I'm quite open ended. I will throw it open to a room. Where should this go? Let's examine all the different possibilities, and then bring it around towards the end. And it also depends on what form I'm working in, because I've directed a lot of opera and a lot of musical theatre in the past. And in your rehearsal room for those two forms, particularly musicals, you don't have you have to be a lot more decisive about what you want and particularly what kind of visual picture you want, and you have to give a lot more. You demand an awful lot more of your players, because you need them individually to do a huge amount of character development work. Whereas I find with a play, you can stop, you can do a little bit of side coaching, you can talk about decisions that particular characters are making at particular moments in time and how they might interact with someone else and reactions and all of those. Like my first musical was Sondheim Sweeney Todd. My God, when I look back on it now, and it was just there's so much texture and layer in that. But just actually putting together the geography of the piece is such a challenge that all my time in the rehearsal hall went on just figuring it out, how it actually worked and how it moved and how the action unfolded.
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well is down to just you're chatting to the type of production you're doing as well, and whether you're devising or and if you're writing directing. Because I know when I'm writing and directing, like for example the 1916 play, if I was in the GPO, or even the last play that sadly never got to have it stay out yet because of COVID, Pay the Price. And that was very much kind of workshopped and written and tried out on the floor as it was going. And there's a much more creative freedom in that. But like if you're looking at kind of some classics like The Crucible, or even the likes of Alice in Wonderland, which are all past productions we would have done, or The Railway Children, they lend themselves to a certain kind of style and structure nearly in some ways. So in some ways you have a vision, but it has to measure up to kind of the world of that piece.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
it,
and that's what it's about ultimately. At the end of the day, it's about evoking that magical world, and encouraging the audience to enter into a journey of belief where we can tell a story with credibility. And whatever it takes to evoke that world. I think I've learned over the years to be very versatile in terms of my directorial style, working across those different forms. And as long as we're painting a picture both in word or in song as well as visually, then we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think a very honest thing to say as well in that is like in a workshops, in a rehearsal room, like and you're directing it, like you can make wrong calls at times as well. Oh no, that doesn't work, let's slate that, let's try something else. And to not just go with it to kind of save face, because at the end of the day it is a team effort.
it's remarkably similar to being a teacher, which I, as I said earlier on, or a lecturer as I am now, where you have to learn that humility that we spoke about earlier on as well. Realize that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes as a director all the time, and if you pursue your mistake and you stick by it, nothing good awaits you at the end of that journey. You know, you have to own it. And you have to say, you know what, guys, this isn't working. Let's go back to scratch. Let's come at it from a different direction. You know.
Yeah, totally. Before we go on, just to remind people, if you have any questions, if you want to pop them in the chat box, and we will get to them later on. Just if anything comes to mind as we are chatting, because we could just chat all day. 3 hours later.
Too many stories to tell, so we do, absolutely.
God knows what could come out. Let's talk a little bit about those different hats you wear, Mike.
Yeah, it's I love it and I hate it at times as well, because I don't ever hate it, but I struggle with it. So my day-to-day job is I run a drama department, and I run a BA program. But I'm, you know, again, the guys on the call mightn't know or fully understand what's different, maybe let's say between a post-primary teacher and a lecturer. So what's different at universities and in colleges and ITs around Ireland is that lecturers spend a lot of their time on research, and what that means is that what's different, I suppose, between school and college is that the people who teach you in college are charged with generating new knowledge all the time. So universities are not just places where we teach older people, but they're also places where we generate these new knowledges. So, you know, COVID-19 is a classic example of that. A lot of the virology work that's been done has been done in universities around the world. So in my department, I work with some other guys, and we write books about theatre, and we generate new stuff about theatre. So I'm a teacher. I do a little bit of teaching. I'm an administrator. I'm a researcher. I do quite a bit of work at that. I'm just about to do a big project with Creative Ireland. And then I'm an artist, because I've refused always to allow my artistry to go away. So I still make shows. I lit a couple of shows a few weeks ago with my own students, and I still do work of that nature. And all of those things feed each other, but they also sometimes compete with each other too, because, you know, you could be working every hour under the sun if you try to do all of those things simultaneously. So it takes a long time, I suppose, to figure out how to manage them all side by side. And then within theatre, I started as probably a lighting designer. Was my first, let's say, craft in theatre. I developed skills as a director of necessity, because I was running a drama department. And latterly, actually, the job I've spent most time doing is as a producer. And again, of necessity, you know, because we have access in my program to professional venues, and you can't just allow any old show to go in there. They have to be curated properly and have to be produced properly, and they have to uphold certain standards and values. So I spend a lot of time, you know, matching together creative teams, putting the resources in places to make work. But I refuse to kind of stop at that. So a lot of the time I would regard myself as a creative producer, where I will work really closely with a director and with a designer, but I will have a creative input into their role. They will run the rehearsal room, they will run the design meetings. Very often they might be students, some of my senior students, but I will kind of oversee the monetary side of things and the financial side of things, the logistical side of things, with the production manager, but still have my artistic kind of vision on showing the work as well. So we have a huge drama society in Mary I, as you know, Catherine, called Midas. And I started the society essentially 20 years ago, and we started doing plays and musicals. The musicals have become huge, and we've done a lot of kind of world premieres, or Irish premieres, I should say, over the last number of years. And you know, they would regularly sell out 8-9 shows in our main house, which is the Lime Tree Theatre. So, you know, 4,500-5,000 people would see them. So that they would be big production kind of pieces for me, I suppose.
Well.
Yeah, they are. Like, did you say competitive or professional? Competitive. Oh, professional. Yeah, they are. Do you want me to flick up a couple of shots of some of those?
Simon, yeah.
Yeah, because we said we'd show a few pictures. I have some here, which if my machine will behave itself, it better behave itself. Yeah, here we go. So what you're looking at now, guys, is this is our production of Les Miserables, which is about 5 years ago. and we had the university rights for that, so we were able to do the whole thing, which is fantastic. Oh, we're getting subtitles as well, which is an interesting. Yeah, I don't know how we managed to organize the subtitles. That's impressive. So that's Les Mis, which, as you can see, you know, there's a pretty strong sense of it looking somewhat like the original Les Mis. You know, we had a barricade, which you can see there, and split in two halves and revolved and so on and so forth. So with Midas, we're able to marry a lot of, so one of my PhD students, who's a professional set designer, designed the set for that. And we bring, you know, we had some professional stage carpentry teams work on the set and put it together. And we were able to, because of our budget, we were able to bring in the costume set from the UK and so on and so forth. And my great friend, a wonderful man called Noel Lennon, who's from Monaghan originally, but lives in Clare now. Noel is our musical director, and we put together a band, which is absolutely, you know, fantastic and so on and so forth. Let me see if I can find more Midas shows. That's a different show. Well, I can explain some of these later on. Yeah. Sorry?
No, it's just one of those pictures looks like Fiona McDonough.
No, which one?
Oh, it's gone. Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't Fiona, but it just had a look of her. Oh, you're freezing on me. You're frozen on me, Mike.
Show. If you've never heard the soundtrack to Starlight Express, go and listen to it. And it's about a little girl's dream. I love it because it's about, for two reasons, it's about a little girl's dream. And she falls asleep with her train set by her bed or on her bed. And in her dream, the trains come to life and they race each other. And that's the entire show. So the entire show is of trains racing each other. So all the cast are on roller skates. So I had a cast of 40 on roller skates for the entire show. They all learned to skate, and no one broke any bones except me, because I fell off. You'll see the set in a little while. I was on the set build and I fell down, and I broke my arm on the 2 days before the show went up. But yeah, you get a sense of it there that, you know, that we made all the costumes ourselves, and you know, the makeup, the wigs, the hair were just fantastic. Look, you know, we again, because we had the budget, because we run for a long time, we had this amazing set of truss and of platforms and so on and so forth. We're really lucky in Limerick. We have some incredible young actors and young performers to work with, and that's what it looked like at the end. You couldn't get those two shows that I've shown you, Les Mis and Starlight Express. You couldn't get a ticket to see them for love nor money. And Starlight, I have to say, is probably one of the most incredible theatrical experiences I've had in my life. I don't necessarily love musicals. I'm very used to doing musicals. I don't always love them, but they engender a joy, and they can bring people together in a way that I've rarely experienced elsewhere. A couple of just more Midas ones. This is from a beautiful musical called Godspell. I will always program, and I'll always choose a musical to suit the kind of strengths and the talents that we have. So this is based around a series of Bible stories. But you know, and you can see on the right hand side the crucifixion, but it's told in really, really contemporary terms. That's the guy playing Jesus on the left. And yeah, and so on that show, I designed the set and the lighting, and I was the producer. So that's kind of they're the best way of explaining how I kind of see myself as a creative producer, really, more than anything else.
They're amazing, brilliant production shots.
Yeah, I have a great friend who actually, he's an engineer, funny enough. He's he works in Analog Devices, which is a big software company here in Limerick, and he's an amateur photographer, and he takes our shots, and he does a lot of amateur musicals himself, and he has an eye for them and manages to capture the moment, you know.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. They're really, really amazing. I suppose, and the big thing worth noting is that all the actors in those shows are all third level students who are training to become teachers.
Many of them would be, yeah. Some of them would be just art students or early childhood, or you know, because we have all the different degrees now. Yeah, but loads of them would be primary school teachers. And you're right, the majority of them, probably, I would say maybe 60 or 70% would be coming from the primary school program degrees. So, and I suppose the kids coming on to those programs tend to be really multi-talented. So they tend to have an interest. They tend to be really well-rounded. Tend to have an interest in you know, song and dance, the triple threat, as we call it in musical theatre. You know, the ability to act and to sing and to dance simultaneously. But yeah, and from all over the country actually. And I'm going to flash back the screen for a second because I've just spotted a fella here who deserves a mention, because he is from Castlerea, actually, believe it or not. So yeah, so I'm not sure. So on the left-hand picture, which is the one of Jesus singing, not the crucifixion picture,
Yeah.
there's a guy sitting there scratching his beard and looking up at him. And that's a guy called Jamie Mee, and Jamie is from just outside Castlerea. So we bring together people from, literally probably about 20 counties in our production. They come together. Some of them can be drama students, either on the single honors or the joint honors degree. So they could be doing drama and media, or they could be doing drama on its own, or as you already said, Catherine, they could be training to be teachers, or they could be doing early childhood, or any of our other different programs. And they have an absolute ball. Those guys, they adore those shows, because I suppose they're successful and they're well executed as well. So that's Jamie. If any of you spot him in Castlerea, stop him and tell him he's famous.
How do we know that? Yeah, because he was the yeah, I've met Jamie. I think one of the earlier years when I began lecturing down in Mary I, he was the tech support. Actually,
he was on placement. That's right. Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right. He worked with me for a semester.
I didn't know he was from Castlerea.
Yeah. Just outside. I think he's out the Ballinlough side of Castlerea. Yeah.
Ah, very good, very good. So I suppose a question I know that the guys would be interested in, just in relation to those productions, is how long would that process take?
So it's quite intense. So I was having this conversation actually with a colleague the other day. So we do about 12 weeks pre-production. So it's kind of a unique structure because I'm the creative producer and we have an entirely student production team working with me. So the student director, student choral master, choral director, student choreographer, student dance captain, student stage managers. So I will manage all of those departments. So we will do the first semester in the autumn, we will do pre-production work, weekly production meetings, and we will do auditions, and then everyone gets sent home at Christmas. Anyone who's in the cast, if you're in the principal kind of lineup or you have spoken dialogue, you have to come back after Christmas with your off book. And if you are in the company, if you're in the ensemble, you don't have spoken language, you have to come back knowing all your songs. And then we start rehearsing in week one. Like we've been doing this 20 years, so we went down to a fine art. We start rehearsing in week one. We do 3 nights a week for the first 4 weeks, and then 4 nights a week for the next 4 weeks. And then we do 7 nights a week, including weekends, for the 2 weeks beforehand. Then we do a week in the theatre. So it's 9 weeks rehearsal, 1 week performance, but so much of the work is done beforehand, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's fairly intense, like.
Oh, it's ridiculously intense. Absolutely. We did a chorus line, which is a big song and dance show. It was the last one before COVID, so it'll be kind of 2 years ago this time of the year, 3 years ago by the time we will hopefully come back in the spring. And that's a dance marathon. So the guys were as fit as fiddles because they were dancing literally 5 nights a week for the entire semester. So they put a huge amount of their lives on hold, but what they get back from it is massive. They developed. We had our 20th anniversary reunion last year, and they came back from 20 years ago. Like there's actually a girl from Roscommon Town, a girl called Kiva O'Dowd, who now she's married and lives in Claregalway, was one of my first directors. And like Kiva and myself would still text every so often and share memories about it. But they make friendships that last them all their lives. I've been to a couple of Midas weddings at this stage and things like that. But I could get a message from some of them. I haven't seen them in 10 years, and the bond is still there. It's still really, really, really strong.
Yeah, and that's something that you can kind of akin as well to the youth theatre. Like everyone.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
In the youth theatre, will kind of say to family, and there's usually a few of them actually sitting on this session, recent graduates, or some of them are back like as mentors for our Queen and O project at the moment, and they'll say like you never truly leave youth theatre. Like I've in their 30s who are still now involved in it, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the Midas, actually, we've generated more professional actors out of Midas than we have at lots and lots of other places. Loads of the guys have gone on to work professionally in the business as actors, as performers, and as crew as well. So it's a really formative personal experience, but it's also a really incredibly powerful training ground for people who want to go on and even if you're not doing a drama program, what I would say to any of the guys who are listening, is if you do go to university, if you do go to college, go and join your drama society. If you're lucky, it takes a bit of bravery to sign up that first day. You mightn't have anyone to talk to that first meeting, but look, eventually you will fall in with a gang of people, and they'll be your besties all the way through.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much for showing and sharing those pictures, Mike. And that kind of might take us nicely to, I suppose, maybe talking about college, because I know most of the people on this call have a couple of more years to go, but they might be thinking about it at this moment in time. So maybe choosing to do drama at college, what would we say about that?
Well, this is a conversation I have with lots of people, and including with lots of mums and dads, to be honest, as well, because it's still a relatively new thing in Ireland, isn't it? Like it wasn't really a thing.
There was Queens or there was Dublin when I had that chance.
And now, like even, if you're as all the lads listening are in, Roscommon or in the, you have Sligo, you have NUIG, you have us in Limerick, and there's people, Cork as well. So you don't even have to go to Dublin or Belfast. College has changed in my time working there. So, the idea that I suppose when I was going to college, you went and you did the course that was going to be your career, didn't you? So I went and I did a teaching course, and the expectation was that I would be a teacher. But if you did law, you were going to spend your life at law, or if you did commerce, you were going to spend your life at that, and so on and so forth. I think it has changed a lot, and I think increasingly a lot of people come to college and do an undergraduate program and then move on and do something different at postgraduate level, or so on and so forth. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think it actually, that changing nature of what university and college life is like actually opens the doors to a lot more people to study at drama. I think in Ireland there's still a little bit of resistance to, what are you doing that for? My God, you're jumping around the place and dancing and playing at make-believe. Yeah, sure, we've heard it all a million times before, and I'm sure some of the people listening have heard it already, and what should be wasting your time for doing that kind of a thing. But I think that's slowly beginning to change, and I think there's more space coming about now. What I would say about a program in drama, regardless of where you do it, is that it gives you a set of skills that allows you to improve as a human and to really flourish as a human. Because actually what drama does, when you study it all the time, day in, day out, in terms of texts, in terms of scripts, in terms of devising or technical side of things, it teaches you how to think and how to improvise and how to create and how to imagine and how to be really versatile. But it also teaches you how to work with other people. It teaches you how to, to develop that generosity that we spoke about earlier on, how to give and how to take, how to listen to other people's ideas, and how to present your own ideas with confidence. So the amount of drama graduates who will go on and excel in other facets of life is quite incredible. And it's not a wasted degree in any way, shape, or form, because it's a really rich and broad education. But I think that's one of the greatest selling points for drama. Even if you were never to work a day as a lighting designer, as an actor in your life, it gives you a set of human skills that just equips you for anything,
Yeah, no, totally, completely. I completely agree with you, 100%. And there really are life skills. They're really transferable skills. And even in terms of creativity, they're the really most sought after skills now and going into the future.
This is the thing, and I've never ever, and I say this to every parent who expresses concern about their young person doing a degree in drama, I've never come across an unemployed drama graduate, no more than myself and yourself. They find work, incredibly versatile people. And you see, there's more jobs in the arts than anyone ever realizes in Ireland. Because on my campus, you've obviously got all the drama staff between drama department, and then you've got the drama education team that you work with. And then then we have 2 professional theatres that employ 12 people full time. So the amount of graduates, in the arts who work in or around of our small college is quite astonishing. And that's the same all over Ireland. So there is work out there. And the older I get, and I sound like an old man now, but the more important I feel it to be that people follow their passion and follow their dreams. And if you don't do it when you're 17, 18, 19, 20 and you're going to college, when are you going to do it,
Yeah, because the years just go.
Oh, absolutely.
They
fly by.
In the blink of an eye. But yeah, and I suppose in saying that, we've talked a lot about the kind of the type of careers that there are, and maybe you might just maybe speak a little bit about those. I know we've touched on quite a few of them, but maybe some of the ones that we haven't.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you know, I teach a module in year one of my program, and it's introduction to production and technical theatre and theatre skills. So it's about the craft of theatre really more than anything else. And the very first question I ask in week one, I have a big empty whiteboard in front of me, and I say to the lads, right, what are the jobs in the theatre in Ireland? And of course, the first hand goes up and someone shouts, actor. And I kind of go, right, of course, it's always the first answer, naturally. And I write actor down in the smallest possible letters in the top corner. And I turn around to them, and always I can see them staring at me, and I'm kind of going, I know why. I know why you're looking at me like that. But you think actor should be in the middle of the board and probably the biggest word. You know the old joke, how many actors does it take to change a light bulb, Catherine? How many?
How many?
How many?
Ball wouldn't change it.
Well, it actually takes one. But you see, what they do is they just stand there with the light bulb and they wait for the world to revolve around them. You know? Sorry, it's a bit cruel. I tell my wife that all the time, and I never get any dinner. But but no, look, there's so many more. Like when I was starting to do drama, I'd never heard of a dramaturg, for example. And one of our students at the moment is a man called Tom. Yeah, absolutely. Thomas Conway is doing his PhD in my department at the moment, and Thomas was the dramaturg for Gary Hines and Drew Theatre Company for many years, and has worked in Dublin. And you know, I asked Thomas one day how would he describe his job, and he spent an hour trying to describe what it is. I think a dramaturg for me is kind of like a theatre whisperer, like a horse whisperer. They speak almost a secret language, but as you know, and as some of the guys might know, they're the person that goes between the director and the writer in terms of trying to figure out what makes a script actually work. But you know, we've got dramaturgs, we've got literary managers. In my theatre organisation, which is the Lime Tree and the Bell Table, we have marketing staff. So we have a digital marketing executive, we have a senior marketing executive, we have a box office manager, and she's the woman who makes all the theatre systems work and makes sure that patrons have the right ideas. We have front of house supervisors. My department obviously is on the technical side of things, and even within a technical department, you know, you'll have a production stage manager, you'll have a stage manager, deputy stage manager, assistant stage manager. They're all different jobs. You'll have a flight chief, and they'll be the person in charge of dropping things in and out. Chief electrician, a rigger, a desk programmer, desk operator. Sound boys sorry, it's a very gendered language. Noise boys, we used to call them in the past. There's the sound designers, the soundies, and then the vidiots, who are the AV specialists, and so on and so forth. Sorry, these are all the very un-PC words for the technical departments. But yeah, the hundreds and hundreds of different jobs, and everything is so specialized, of course, in the theatre. And then there's what we do on the facilitation side of things. I spend a lot more time now in meeting rooms than I do in rehearsal studios. But you know, I work with arts managers. I work with people who do funding applications and funding evaluations, and so on and so forth. So look, there's hundreds, literally hundreds of different jobs out there, and anything really that you can probably think of, there is a job for it in the arts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you've really kind of touched on a broad spectrum there, and there's so many more opportunities now, even coming up now, that are going to be, you know, available for kind of, you know, I suppose the graduates who are on this call, in terms of just Creative Ireland, and the momentum that's grown with that is brilliant.
Huge amount of work, and like the you know, no more than the work that you're doing at the moment, like the work that I've just been given well, I wasn't given it, but it's, you know, I've been given a big amount of money by Creative Ireland and the Irish Research Council to investigate all the projects in Ireland that use creativity to bring about well-being. And again, even 10 years ago, it was unthinkable that we as a country would put money into people feeling well and being well through the arts and through creativity. But of course, we've learned so much in the last year. I'm sure all the lads who are listening, no more than myself and yourself, have had our down days sitting at home looking at the walls again and again and again and again and again, and missing people and missing going out and playing with our friends and missing all of those things. So what we've realized as a result of that is that we as a country need to spend more money on youth theatres, which is one area that's going to receive more money, and on projects for, let's say, older people in retirement homes and nursing homes, and on, you know, very young children who are learning how to play for the first time and need to learn how to play with each other. So what I do then is I'm coming in, looking at where all those projects exist and trying to figure out as a researcher, why do they work and what's really valuable about them. And again, the work of all of those women and men who work on those projects just simply didn't exist 10 years ago. So there's so much more going on in the arts than there was. There's been really, and I would be a little skeptical at times of Creative Ireland, but one thing you can't argue with is the amount of activity it's resulted in terms of Ireland, you know.
Yeah, no, and it's there's huge investments, and I know I for one I'm delighted to be involved in a number of their projects, both from youth perspective, you know, students perspective, and you know in the near future a project that looks at regeneration as well. So it's you know, it's really heartening, and I suppose that brings us nicely to the point of what would you say is the role that creativity plays in our lives?
I think I don't want to over-egg this one, because sometimes I think
there's no kind of tick the box answer, because it's
no, there isn't. But I actually think it's something we draw on all the time. We don't even know it. I think all that you and I are doing, let's say, Catherine, and people we work with, is simply naming something and trying to encourage something that's actually a part of how we live our lives all the time, and saying at times that creativity and playfulness, which it's very much tied to, are okay. When I was growing up, you know, it was very much a thing of you had to act your age and stop messing around and stop being, you know, and so, very often we would say that, oh, you know, he's a bit of a player, or he's a messer, or she's a messer, or whatever it might be. We tend to associate that kind of playfulness still in some ways as being not a great kind of quality. Yeah. Whereas actually I think it's absolutely important and essential to the business of living. We've all had to play our lives and recreate our lives in a different way in the last year. Doesn't matter if you're 10, doesn't matter if you're 110. We've all had to re-engineer, and it's creativity that has allowed us to do that. Whether it was going out for a walk every day, or whether it was you know, learning to bake, or figuring out how to use, you know, I heard a man being interviewed in the radio this evening who had to learn how to use the internet in order to buy cattle at the mart. And it doesn't matter what, you know, it's creativity that enables us to pivot, to use the word of the day. And I suppose I'm always careful to differentiate between imagination and creativity. Imagination is the intellectual process that drives creativity. Creativity is actually taking the action. It's you know, it's taking down a recipe and it's saying, right, I'm going to learn how to make buns and I'm going to do it my own particular way. That's a creative action, but it's driven by an imaginative impulse. So, and then you have very structured forms of creativity, like, you know, putting on musicals, putting on plays, playing the clarinet, learning to do contemporary dance, or whatever it might be. But there is a creative impulse in every part of every single day. And it's in us all. And I think our jobs, a lot of the time, dare I say, Catherine, is simply to allow people to release that creativity in very structured ways, and to say to people, it's not bad. You get to play all your life if you want to, you know, all your life. And the people who live longest and are happiest are the, you know, if you think to, you know, all the guys, if you think to your elderly relatives, think of the grannies and granddads and who are the happiest. They're the cheeky, playful ones. They're the ones who see the world in Technicolor and not just in black and white.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm so grateful for, is that I get to get up every day and I get to play. You know, and it's like, you know, there's that saying is, you'll never work a day in your life, you know, when you're doing something you love. But for me, it's just that whole sense of play, and I suppose what you get out of it, and it's just, you know, there's something every day that just stays with you.
Yeah, there is, and it can lead to great things. Like you know, my playing in my life has brought wonderful riches and rewards, but I've made incredible friends. I've managed to help build a professional theatre through not being afraid to just play and to throw out ideas and to start saying, well, maybe let's do things differently. You know, and Mary Macklin College, Mary I, as we call it, would be known traditionally in terms of teacher education. And now we have, you know, the most important theatre in the Midwest sitting in the middle of our campus because we played. So, you know, it's all part of it, you know, and that little bit of creativity is all part of, you know, just being better at the business of being human.
Yeah, and I suppose we really have to talk about that, because the lime tree wouldn't really be there without you.
Yeah, well, you look at it. It had a lot of parents in some respects, but it took me. I suppose I was the again, bonus points to anyone who's listened to us who knows what a trickster is. So a trickster is kind of a mythical, semi-mythical spirit who plays betwixt and between, who can kind of go between the world of the living, the world of the dead sometimes. So banshees in Irish culture would be tricksters. But in Shakespearean terms, any of you who might know King Lear, the fool in King Lear is a trickster because he plays on the side of Lear and plays on the side of everyone else. And I was the trickster on that. So I was the person when we started redeveloping the project who whispered in the president's ear and said, we should build a theatre. And I knew we needed a theatre in Limerick because we had the Bell Table, which is at the time was 320 seats. It's now 240. And we had the Concert Hall, which was 1,000 seats. And I was just really frustrated because we had nothing in the middle. And the Bell Table was too small to house a lot of touring work or to put on big productions. The Concert Hall was much too big and it wasn't a theatre. And I just kept whispering and I kept playing and I kept saying, this is how it works and so on and so forth. And this is how much money we need to put into it. And I kept going to the meetings and I kept trying to build relationships with people. And we ended up with this incredible theatre and about €2.5 million as well, by the way, which wasn't my personal money, but it's about, I suppose I was just really lucky to be the right person in the right place in the right time and to be around lots of people who listened to me that this would work. And then we when we set up the business, it's a separate business, a separate company to the college, but I'm on the board of directors, and we now run the Bell Table as well. So we run the two. So the Lime Tree is a 510 seat proscenium arch theatre, which is an end-on theatre, traditional theatre, and then the Bell Table is a 220 seat flexible space, so it can be black box or it can be end-on as well. So we run the two of them together. But a woman from Longford actually came in for interview, and she was running the Dunamaze Art Centre in Portlaoise at the time, called Louise Donnan. And Louise, I had a sense that day when we interviewed her that Louise was an amazing director, which she has proven herself to be. And so we now have 10 full-time staff, and we're about to celebrate our 10th birthday. And I get to stand on the stage with people like Gary Hines or Graham McLaren and talk about the venue that I helped to build. So it's been a huge gift in my life as well. So it has,
Yeah, I suppose when you mention Mr. McLaren as well, I suppose the Abbey Theatre has gone through a lot of transformation in the last couple of years, and is about to go through the next one now with Katrina and Mark as well. I think both appointments. I think the two boys was a personally, I think it was a really big shift with the Abbey. So going somewhere now.
Well, it was, and away from Fiach and all that had been done that time as well. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was the right appointment. I look, Graham and Neil, I've gotten to meet occasionally. I couldn't know either of them particularly well, but they did some really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I have great time for him. Yeah,
they did some really, really interesting stuff, and some really kind of radical changes, and I think the time is absolutely right now for Katrina and for Mark. I know Mark very well. I worked with him on Creative Schools. I was the chairman of the design team for the Creative Schools project, and Mark was the vice chairman. So he was the director of the Axis in Ballymun at the time. So and Katrina and Mark will go in and really shake things up again. So look, I think the Abbey board are making some smart decisions, and the Abbey will always come in for criticism. It's as simple as that. It's the National Theatre. It's always going to be. Yeah,
no, I'm really interested now to see where they will bring it. Because the Mark has got a really great history behind him, which goes all the way back to youth theatre as well.
No, he's hugely vested in youth theatre, and I think for people like Phil Kingston, who I know you know well in the Abbey, it must be really exciting to see someone like Mark coming in at the top.
Yeah, big time, and Katrina as well. That's the reason why I brought them up, is because Katrina has directed the National.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic.
So there's a real kind of massive youth theatre connection there to National Theatre now, I suppose, which hadn't really been there in the past, more as exclusively. So and that again brings it back to the possibilities of youth theatre as well. Folks, we're at 8:15, so we're probably going to have about 10 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop on your camera, because there's not that many of us, and your mic, and ask it. Be brave. Doesn't matter what it is.
Be brave.
Yeah. What inspires you, Michael?
Storytelling. sorry, that might sound really blasé. I love telling stories. I'm a bit of a kind of a rambler myself, and I like telling stories. And I think the reason I love theatre so much is because it helps us tell stories of our world. And I'm very much interested, like my roots, as we talked about earlier on, are very much in drama education and teaching drama. So I have a huge affinity with youth theatre, despite never having worked in youth theatre or being a youth theatre. Roscommon County Youth Theatre was a little bit too late for me, unfortunately. But I have a massive affinity with opening up our theatres, whether it's to young people or to older people, who would typically be the two sectors who don't tend to be represented on our stages, or to the many, many new communities that we're so blessed to have in Ireland now, and to hearing their stories being told in our stages. That's what it should be about. It's not about the canon. It's not about putting on the O'Caseys or putting on the Boosicles or whatever it might be. Yeah, they have their place, but it's actually about these people who are sitting here with us now, Catherine. It's about you and I building theatres and building organisations that tell their stories and tell stories that they want to hear. So in a nutshell, that's what inspires me, is trying to facilitate spaces in my courses and in the venues, because I'm really lucky as well. I'm on the board of Dance Limerick. My DV8 days are still alive. So I'm the chairman of the board of Dance Limerick, which is a professional dance resource organisation here in Limerick, and I chair the board of Branner, whose work I know you know very, very well, because you worked with the company lots of times in the past in Galway. And all of those organisations, I'm about to step down from the lime tree after 10 years, but like Branner is all about telling big stories for little people, and Dance Limerick is all about bringing non-traditional dancers into dance spaces. So that you can tell about me, I suppose, or what you can tell about me is from who I work with. But at the heart of all of it is storytelling.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's a really nice way of pushing it. Gosh, what advice would you give young people to kind of considering a career in the arts? Would you say go for it?
I would say go for it. I would say give it the same consideration as you'd give a career in engineering or a career in medicine or a career in bioscience or whatever it might be. Like I think we probably need to separate that thing of what should I do in college from what career will I have. I think they are now becoming two separate things.
Yeah.
But naturally, you don't want to waste your precious time in college studying, nuclear physics if you really want to be a dancer or something like that. So it's also to be brave. I don't think I was particularly brave when I was 17 or 18. I was very young as well, but I think it's also to be brave and to have conversations with people in the arts, people like yourself, Catherine, people, dare I say it, like myself, and with your own family about what will make you happy. It's to do your homework and to be brave. Ultimately, the wonderful thing about the arts, I suppose, when I started meeting actors and directors and designers first, I was a little bit in awe, because I thought, oh my God, these are the people who are on the television and these are the people who are on the stage, and they're very scary and very famous and all the rest of it. They're not. And you've had Chris O'Dowd and Aaron Monaghan, and I know Julie's coming on as well soon as well. All very, very well known people, and sure, they're the most ordinary people in the entire world. Even Chris O'Dowd from Boyle,
Yeah,
totally. He was no good at football, by the way. I don't care what he says. I played against him. He was pretty crap.
We won't mention the football after the trashing we got yesterday.
No, we won't. We better not. No, we better not. We better not. But the thing is, obviously it would be very hard to lay your hands on Chris O'Dowd. But what I'd say to the guys is, talk to people who work in the arts or are in the arts about what it might mean. If you're thinking of going to university, and it's probably a long way off for lots of you, email the lecturers, whether it's NUIG or Queen's or UCC or ourselves in Limerick, email them and say, what's it like being on your course? Maybe come and visit. We do that all the time, so be brave.
It's much more reachable and much more attainable than it like when we would have had that opportunity. We didn't have
definitely
those possibilities of accessibility didn't exist, and even there wouldn't have been anyone to give advice. I know when I was growing up, so it is a huge difference.
Yes. Whereas, and even in this last year now, everyone in the world knows how to use Zoom. So if someone writes to me and says, "Hey, I'd love to ask you some questions about your drama program," I'd say, "Well, here's a Zoom link. I'll chat to you for 10 minutes on Zoom," and it's so accessible and so easy compared to what it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So we're going to wrap it up now in the next couple of minutes, folks. I'm just thinking, was there anything burning that we didn't get to chat about, Mike, that you wanted to talk about?
No. What I will do is I'll throw up a few more pictures if people want to see some of the other stuff that we've done over the years.
That'd be great.
And I always think it's nice to finish on visuals. This is a production of 448 Psychosis, which is a very complicated name. This is my first year drama class from about. These guys have just done their final performance. So Sarah Kane. Yeah. It's a play about mental unwellness, so it's a bit of a tricky play, but you get a sense of some of the stuff that we do there. So this is in the Bell Table, actually, which is our second space. And
I love it. I always want.
Oh, beautiful play, and we did it as a chorale. Yeah. So we did it so all the companies speaking all the lines all the time, which was beautiful. So that's those guys. One of the other things I do, I supervise masters and PhD students. So this is one of my PhD students. So a woman called Aideen Wild, who's now Dr. Aideen Wild. Yes. And Aideen works now, she's associated with a company in Cork called Broken Crow. She's a playwright and has had work staged at the Dublin Theatre Festival, but in the Everyman in Cork as well. She works with Cartoon Saloon, who've just been nominated for an Oscar. So this is her PhD.
We Paul Young.
Oh, right. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So Aideen is down there. So this is the piece she did for her PhD. And it was about being Jewish in Ireland, believe it or not, called Here Shall We Rest. And another one of our PhD students made that amazing tree at the back.
Can we talk about that tree? That tree looks amazing. So what's it made out of?
It's amazing. It's made out of, well, it is a wooden frame. Look at the way it takes light.
Yeah.
I that's a different show, but look, it was underlit and it was side lit, and that's the way it takes light. It's made from, so the actual tree itself, papier mâché, and just coloured, and then the branches were paper cutouts.
Stunning,
isn't it? So Emma Fisher, who was another PhD student and a professional designer, made the tree, and it's just an astonishing tree. So there was a little ladder at the back where Aideen could climb up, and really, other than that, it was just a very, very simple stage. This is a local company called College Players that I work with in Limerick, because I still work with community companies. This was the last big piece that I lit. So this was translation, Brian Friel's translations, which looked well, if I say so myself.
Another fine play.
Oh, brilliant play. And I actually was slated to direct it myself, and I didn't get a chance to because my workload, unfortunately, was a bit too much. But we have a fantastic set designer called Jerry Lombard, and he and I collaborated on the set and the lighting, and it just all came together. Some of the pictures are a bit blurry, but it's a semi-professional company, so we have some professional actors in there and some amateur actors, but it works really well. And I just want to say again,
what's on the ground for translations?
So believe it or not, so it's actually it's obviously there's gobo on it. It is rubber granules. So you know car tires that are shredded. That's what's on the ground.
Yeah.
So you can buy bags of this stuff because you know, we had to do a risk assessment, and there was a problem of having soil. And you see, if soil is on a big stage like that, it desiccates, it dries out, becomes a fire hazard. It has to be damped down all the time. It's also really messy for the theatre staff and for us to get back up and all the rest of it. So it's a little bit chunkier than I would have liked, and then the designer would have liked, but it still gives the impression and breaks it up quite nicely. So it does, you know.
Yeah, no, that's great. So obviously, you would have been sweeping that up and really putting it down next day. And
exactly, and you see the thing you can do with it is you can push it around the place. So you still get your kind of evenness of the color on the stage as well. And the last pictures I wanted to share with you guys was just to show you that theatre is still possible in the world. These are from 2 weeks ago. So these are the picture in the top right isn't great; it's a little bit blurry. But these are from the Lime Tree. We managed to put up our final year shows, or our end of year shows. So this is our first year class, and they did 2 plays that were about votes for women, suffragette plays we call them. So we had to strip everything right down. We still managed to do a full costume plot, but you can see literally the bare bones of a set. So we did a kind of an outline set, but it still worked. We put in some period furniture and it still worked fine. There was no audience, so it was only the crew. They performed it 3 times and it was filmed. And we did it in repertory with these guys, and this is our final year class. And they did a piece called Girls Like That, which is set in school. And again, very, very simple set, chairs and a series of lockers, lots of lighting. And so this was directed by Barbara Nequeve, directed this one, and Brian Desmond directed the 2 suffragette plays before that as well. So that's where I kind of I just wanted to make the point to all the lads listening that the world of the arts is still alive, and hopefully we'll get back, and hopefully, you know, your youth theatre will get back, and you'll be back on stage in Roscommon, and I'll be able to come and visit you finally.
That would be wonderful. Do you know, there's some people on this call this evening, Mike, who actually never have had a face-to-face workshop ever with the youth theatre, that they joined us during like during the lockdown. COVID kind of hit.
Well, I'll tell you what, lads, you know, brilliant as it must be sitting listening to myself and Catherine talk all night, it's even better doing workshops with us, I promise you. It really is.
Yeah. So I suppose I'm gonna ask you one question to finish up, Mike. Why don't you turn on your cameras, guys, so you can say hi or say bye, unless you're all gone to sleep on us there. If you want to turn on your cameras and say good luck to us. If you didn't work in theatre, what would you do? And I don't blame you if you can't answer this, because anytime I try and answer this, it always comes back to something creative. There's never a non-creative answer, or in some way arts related answer. And I always search for one, but I can never get one.
It's a really good question. I wouldn't still be a teacher. I don't think I would have stuck at the teaching, to be honest with you, because you know, much as I love working with young people, I don't think schools suit me, despite working on a university now. I think I'd probably be off in something completely different. Like I might be a logistics manager or something like that. I think I'd be organizing stuff, which involves a lot of creativity, but not so much the kind of creativity that you see on stage all the time.
Yeah, I could maybe see you doing that. Maybe, no, I was going to say maybe like in program management, arts management, program management.
Yeah. Something, the producing side of things appeals to me. So maybe something in that line.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a real pleasure to have you. Does anybody want to say anything before we go, guys? Turn on your mics.
They're all lovely and shy.
Not at all.
Well, lovely to meet you all, and thank you for turning on your cameras. It's lovely to see all the faces.
Any questions, Lucy or Mary Kate? No. Okay.
No.
I thought Lucy and Mary Kate were the same person. I thought it was someone called Lucy Mary Kate.
If you have any comments or you want to leave in the chat box about the session, feel free to do that. And if not, we will say good night and thank you so much. Mike, thanks again so much for your time.
My pleasure. Lovely to meet you all, folks.